Hey, Sunset Teens. Hope you're having a good week and a great Wednesday. Mel and I are missing everyone like crazy. We miss getting to see you and see your smiling faces. The only solution to that is to have another virtual teen time. So, this Sunday at 6:30, we're going to have another virtual teen time like we have been. I'll put the code up on Facebook and remind tomorrow. I'll also send out a message on Sunday to remind you because I know we forget because who knows what day it is anymore. Also, don't give up hope. I'm still working on ideas for a movie night, so be on the lookout for more information. So, for today's lesson, I'm going to start with a question. Do you love to fly? Now, I personally don't like flying. That's one of my fears. I don't like heights, so therefore I don't like flying. But even though I don't like to fly, I like looking out the window. I know it's weird. I like to be able to see houses and farms. I like to be able to see where the airport is because I know I get to be on the ground soon. This reminds me of a story. Somewhere between my junior and senior year, I had an opportunity to go on a mission trip to Honduras. Now, like I said, I don't like to fly. The only way to get to Honduras is to fly. So we ended up flying from Atlanta to Miami, and then from Miami to Honduras to the capital of Honduras, Tegucigalpa. Now, Tegucigalpa Airport has the second most dangerous runway in the world. The first one is in Nepal, if you were wondering. Now, there are several different reasons that this is one of the world's most dangerous runways. First, when you're coming in for a landing, the city of Tegucigalpa sits in a bowl, okay? It's surrounded by mountains. This is where all the poor people live. This is where we ended up doing our work. And when you are coming in and making your approach to the runway, the plane ends up making a 45-degree bank. So the plane goes from like this to this. Actually, it's almost more like that. And actually, when we were there, we were sitting up here on this side of the plane. So we're looking down, okay? The wingtips are almost touching the houses. And then once you've made this turn, you literally drop out of the sky. Literally drop out of the sky and hit the runway and pray you stop. Because at the end of the runway is a highway. There's nowhere for this plane to go except off into the highway. And several aircraft haven't stopped in time and have gone into the highway. Many people have been killed. This is why it's one of the most dangerous in the world. Now, the day we flew into Honduras, mind you, we knew that this runway was going to be short. We knew it was going to be bad. What we didn't expect was it to be raining. And the day we flew into Honduras, it was raining. So we had to circle for about 2 hours for the rain to stop and it to dry up enough to where we could even attempt to land. So when we made that turn, we come out of the sky, we drop and touch down. And we start to slow and slow and slow. And I mean, it was just like, pushing you. You've never seen a group of people so happy. We were all cheering and applauding. A few of us kissed the ground. I'm not saying it was me. But we were so happy to have survived one of the world's most dangerous runways, which leads me to a question. What scares you the most? Causes anxiety? Or better yet, what do you worry about? Because anxiety comes from worry. So, better question, what worries you? What does anxiety look like? Now, anxiety symptoms vary from person to person, but in general, the body reacts in a very specific way to anxiety. So when you feel anxious, your body goes on high alert and it's looking for possible danger and to activate your fight or flight response. So as a result, there are some common symptoms that go with it. Nervousness, restlessness, being tense, feelings of danger, panic, dread, rapid heart rate, rapid breathing, hyperventilation, increased or heavy sweating, trembling, muscle twitches, weakness, difficult focusing, thinking clearly about anything other than the thing you're worried about, insomnia. So today we're going to talk about anxiety and fear. And what does the Bible say about that? So if you look over in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 25, it says this: worry weighs a person down. An encouraging word cheers a person up. So Solomon provides some huge words here. Anxiety is a thing that will always weigh us down. We can get all caught up in our worries. They're like these chains, heavy weights around our necks. You know exactly what I'm talking about in normal ways of life, don't you? Ever had a big test you've studied and studied for, yet when you show up to take that test, there's such a huge sense of impending doom. That emotional baggage you carry, it feels like a heavy weight. But when you've taken that test, and then suddenly you're done, the weight's gone. It's freeing. That's just the normal pace of life. But now, with our extended spring break, I guess, and now with the possibility of finishing, with not even possibility, now that we are finishing school online, there's even more anxiety in ways that we've not thought about before. Every day we watch the counts of those who are infected and dying going up on the exponential curve. What was just a couple of dozen cases a few weeks ago? It's thousands upon thousands now, and we don't know when a peak will come. Solomon concludes this verse with the thought that a good word will cheer people up. In Luke chapter 12, 25 through 26, Jesus says this: can all your worries add a single moment to your life? And if worry can't accomplish a little thing like that, what's the use of worrying over bigger things? Jesus asked this question about worry. By worrying, can you add a moment of extra time to your life? That's a really good question. Can we? Why does Jesus ask this question? Because it really comes down to control. Anxiety and worry really come down to a lack of control. This is why I don't like flying. I'm not the one flying the plane. I'm not in control, okay? Deep down, we're little control freaks, okay? We're little control freaks because when we feel like we're in control, we don't have to worry. But what this past couple of weeks has shown us is that we are not in control at all. And our reality can change quickly. And this can cause great anxiety as our illusions of control are broken. That's one reason there's been runs on toilet paper, because we can control how much toilet paper we have, and it brings back some sense of control to our lives. The resounding answer to Jesus' question is that no, we cannot add a moment of time to our lives by worrying. So why then should we worry about and have anxiety? The answer is that we shouldn't. So what does Jesus have to say about worry? Matthew 6, 25 through 27, Jesus says this: that is why I tell you not to worry about everyday life. Whether you have enough food and drink or enough clothes to wear, isn't life more than food and your body more than clothing? Look at the birds. They don't plant or harvest or store food in barns, for your heavenly Father feeds them. And aren't you more valuable to him than they are? Can all your worries add a single moment to your life? Here, Jesus gives us some explicit teaching on worry and anxiety. It's simple. He says, don't. Just stop. Don't worry about what you can't control. Give up that anxiety. Jesus uses this to even think about the little things in life, such as what you're going to eat next, what you're going to wear tomorrow. He asks this question: isn't life about more than food and clothing? While those are important, isn't there more to life than that? Stop worrying, he says. He then points out a profound statement about the way that God, the Father, sees us and values us. He points to the birds. They don't worry about food. They don't have barns, and yet God has provided meals for them. He asks this question: who's worth more to the Father? Those birds, who he takes care of, or you? The short answer, of course, is you. You have much more value than the birds. You, after all, are the only thing in creation that, even in our fallen state, bears the image of God. We're not going to add a moment to our lives worrying about things that we just don't have control over. Then in Matthew chapter 11, 28 through 30, goes on to say this. Then Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I'm humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." Remember how Solomon described anxiety, a weight for our hearts. This is exactly what Jesus is describing here. Those who are carrying heavy loads right now, don't hang on to them. Give them up. They're not for us to carry on our own. Now, yoke, I think most of us know what that is, but if you didn't, yoke, it's a farming term. It involves two ox being put together with this apparatus around their necks. And then the yoke would be attached to the plow, and they would pull the plow to get the field ready to seed. When they were training a new ox to pull a yoke, they would pair it with an older, stronger one who knew how it would work. The older, stronger one would pull most of the weight for the younger one. Here Jesus is telling us to take his yoke and learn from him. Let him do the heavy lifting, and the burden will be much easier for us. Jesus asks us to let him take up the heavy lifting for us. In doing so, we can find rest for our souls. Those heavy weights from worrying can be gone. In Psalms 23:4, it says this, "Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect me and comfort me." How do we get to the point that we could be like David and say this statement? We are walking through the darkest valleys in our life, and yet we don't have fear. And we've been walking through these dark moments in the last few weeks. I've never seen church canceled for more than a week or so because of snow, but here we are, three weeks in to this church online thing, and we're not sure when we're going to get back together. Being able to walk through fear and anxiety comes from putting our burdens on Jesus. When we can do that, we know that he's with us. He's the one who will take care of us, and it actually leads to peace. Can you imagine having peace in the midst of all the turmoil? And yet this is exactly what Paul writes about in Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 7. He says this, "Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done. Then you'll experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard our hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus." First, Paul reiterates what reiterates what Jesus and others have said, that we don't have to worry about anything. In fact, when we see worry and anxiety starting to creep up, we need to turn to God. That should be our focus. Take our burdens, the things that are starting to weigh us down, take it to him in prayer. This is exactly what Paul commands us. He tells us to take our worries about everything to God. Prayer describes our approach to God, while petition brings this idea of requesting an answer to specific need. In the midst of this, our attitude should be one of being thankful. We should be thankful that Jesus cares enough to hear and answer our requests and is willing to bear them upon himself. When we do this, Paul tells us the peace of God will flood our troubled soul. God will give us peace in the midst of the craziness that's around us. It's a peace that comes from God and is now bound to circumstance. This is a peace that we have trouble understanding. It surpasses all understanding because it comes from God. This peace will also guard our hearts. Guard carries this idea of a soldier protecting or standing guard over. As soldiers watch over an area to keep it secure, God's peace will watch over, protect, and guard our hearts. So in the midst of the worries of this life, we can have peace by focusing on Jesus, letting him carry our loads. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Sunset Youth Group YouTube page and to keep up with all the Sunday Devos and the Wednesday night lessons.